This is Daily Homeless News, where tell the stories no one else will. When people think of Honolulu, they picture white sand beaches, hula dancers swaying to ukulele melodies, and palm trees whispering in the tropical breeze. It's the postcard perfect vision of paradise, a dream destination etched into the minds of travelers worldwide. But step away from the polished streets of Waikiki. Wander just a few blocks past the glittering resorts, and the illusion begins to crack. Tents line the sidewalks. Shopping carts brim with personal belongings. People huddle on park benches, their faces weathered by more than just the island sun. The sound of crashing waves is drowned out by the quiet despair of those who call the streets home. This is the Honolulu you won't find in travel brochures, the story of a paradise fractured by a homelessness crisis that challenges the very idea of what paradise means. Today, here at Daily Homeless News, we uncover the untold stories of those living in the shadows of the world's most beautiful places. We dive into Honolulu's hidden crisis, a tale of staggering statistics, human struggles, and a community grappling with its moral compass. In 2024, Hawaii reported 6,389 people experiencing homelessness across the state, with 494, roughly 70%, concentrated on Oahu, home to Honolulu. That's a 12% increase from 2023, according to the annual point-in-time count conducted by Partners in Care and sponsored by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. To put it in perspective, Hawaii has one of the highest per capita homelessness rates in the U.S., with approximately 44.9 people per 10,000 residents living without stable housing, nearly triple the national average of 16 per 10,000. On Oahu alone, 2,766 people were unsheltered in 2024, a number that has nearly doubled over the past decade. These numbers are more than statistics, they're a wake-up call. But they only scratch the surface. Behind every digit is a life disrupted, a dream shattered. Consider this, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Honolulu is $2,300 per month as of 2025, while Hawaii's minimum wage is $14 per hour. A full-time minimum wage worker earns about $2,240 a month before taxes, barely enough to cover rent, let alone utilities, food, or transportation. To afford a modest apartment, they'd need to work 120 hours a week. For many, the math simply doesn't add up, and the streets become their only option. Waikiki is Honolulu's crown jewel, a glittering strip of beachfront hotels where tourists sip Mai Tais and watch the sunset. But just beyond the resort gates, the reality is starkly different. Tents dot the sidewalks. People sleep on bus stop benches, their belongings bundled in plastic bags. The contrast is jarring. One side of the street boasts $500 a night suites, the other, a struggle for survival. This isn't an anomaly, it's Honolulu's new normal. The city's sweeps, regular cleanups of homeless encampments have become a controversial fixture. Tents are dismantled, possessions confiscated, and people displaced. But to where? with only 1,500 shelter beds available for over 4,000 homeless individuals on Oahu. The system is overwhelmed. Many simply move to another park or street corner, trapped in a cycle of displacement. A local activist puts it bluntly, "We're not solving homelessness. We're just hiding it from the tourists." The sweeps may clear the streets temporarily, but they do little to address the root causes. Instead, they deepen mistrust between the homeless community and authorities, making it harder for outreach workers to connect people with services. The human toll of these policies is immeasurable, yet the pressure to maintain Honolulu's image as a pristine destination often takes precedence. And while officials proudly point to clean sidewalks and tourist-friendly boulevards, the unraveling of Honolulu's social safety net tells a different story, one they'd rather keep out of the frame.
Because every day that goes by, we need to worry about who might take her stuff, who might take her child for this time. What do you hear?
Homelessness in Honolulu isn't just a crisis of shelter. It's a reflection of a deeper unraveling. It reveals a society where the social safety net isn't just fraying, it's tearing wide open, exposing the most vulnerable to the elements, both literal and systemic. Take a closer look and you'll see it's not just about a lack of housing. It's about the failure of the very systems meant to protect people before they ever reach the streets. In Hawaii, nearly 1/3 of the homeless population identifies as Native Hawaiian, a community that comprises just about 10% of the state's residents. This staggering overrepresentation isn't coincidental. It's the byproduct of generations of displacement, systemic inequity, and the lingering trauma of colonization that continues to echo through modern-day policy and poverty. Healthcare, too, tells a grim tale. Over 60% of the unhoused population wrestles with mental health disorders, substance use issues, or both. But while their needs are urgent, the services designed to help are painfully slow. Detox centers and psychiatric clinics operate at capacity with waiting lists that stretch not for days or weeks, but for months and in some cases, years. Accessing consistent care is like chasing a mirage. For someone battling addiction or depression on the streets, every delay can be fatal. They're running beyond full. Night after night, dozens are turned away simply because there's no room left. The few beds available are gone within hours. For women and children, the stakes are even higher. Domestic violence is a frequent entry point into homelessness for them, and yet specialized shelters are few and far between. Imagine fleeing an abusive home only to be told there's no space, no help, no safe harbor. When society ignores the unhoused, everyone pays the price. This is the hidden cost of homelessness in Honolulu. Homelessness isn't just a personal crisis, it's a societal one. And the longer we treat it like someone else's problem, the deeper its consequences cut across every corner of Honolulu. Homelessness isn't a problem confined to alleyways, park benches, or makeshift tents tucked behind public buildings. It bleeds into the fabric of everyday life, in Honolulu, touching neighborhoods, stretching institutions, and testing the moral compass of an entire city. The effects don't stop at those living on the street. Police officers are asked to double as social workers, called to respond to everything from wellness checks to encampment removals. But law enforcement wasn't built for this role. And when the only response we offer to a housing crisis is a badge and a baton, we're not solving anything. We're just shifting the problem around. Then there are the schools, often forgotten in this conversation, yet deeply affected. Educators report rising numbers of students who show up sleep-deprived, unfocused, or absent altogether. Some children bounce between motels, shelters, and the back seats of cars, robbing them not just of a good night's sleep, but of stability, structure, and a fair shot at their future. How can a child learn multiplication tables when they don't even know where they'll sleep that night? And let's not pretend that the general public is untouched. Residents voice growing frustration. Tourists who came seeking paradise are met with the uncomfortable sight of human suffering. The illusion of Honolulu as a polished postcard paradise cracks when you pass someone huddled on a street corner, their entire life in a backpack. Some call for stricter enforcement to clean up the streets. Others ask for compassion, for bold investment in housing, mental health, and addiction treatment. The arguments clash, but at the heart of them is a deeper moral reckoning. Because here's the real question we all must face. Can we truly call a city beautiful? Can we call it civilized if it turns a blind eye to those who need help the most? The answer doesn't lie in silence or inaction. It lies in whether we choose to see, to care, and to act. Because until we treat homelessness not as someone else's problem, but as our shared responsibility, those ripples will only grow stronger and closer to home. The answer isn't simple, but it's brutally clear once you scratch beneath the surface. It's not just one bad policy or one unlucky break. It's a perfect storm. Economic pressure, geographic isolation, and deeply rooted systemic neglect, all crashing down at once. Let's start with housing. Honolulu consistently ranks among the most expensive rental markets in the United States. As of 2024, the median rent for a modest one-bedroom apartment has soared past $2,200 per month. Now, pause and consider this. At Hawaii's minimum wage of $14 an hour, a person would need to work more than 110 hours a week, every single week, just to keep a roof over their head. And that's without factoring in food, transportation, utilities, or childcare. And make no mistake, the high cost of living here isn't confined to rent. Nearly everything on the islands, from milk to medicine, is more expensive thanks to Hawaii's dependence on imports. For families already living paycheck to paycheck, all it takes is one slip, one unexpected illness, a sudden layoff, a broken car, and they're out on the street. But the problem doesn't stop with economics.
Or say 10 minutes. Sometimes it's good to just have a little bit.
Geography is destiny, and in Hawaii's case, that destiny is isolation. On the mainland, people in crisis can relocate to nearby cities or states with lower costs of living. In Hawaii, that option isn't just expensive, it's often impossible. A plane ticket off the island is a luxury many can't afford, turning the state's natural beauty into a trap for those already struggling. Then there are the systemic failures, those deeper, slower moving forces that grind people down over generations. There's a chronic lack of affordable housing construction, thanks to bureaucratic red tape, zoning restrictions, and community resistance. There's an over-reliance on tourism as the backbone of the economy, which creates seasonal, low-wage jobs with little security. And there's the harsh truth that native Hawaiian communities, already displaced and disenfranchised by centuries of colonization, continue to bear the brunt of poverty and homelessness in their own homeland. Mental health care? It exists, but only in theory for many. The infrastructure is slow, underfunded, and overwhelmed. Wait lists for psychiatric services stretch for months. Crisis response teams are understaffed, and without stable housing, how can anyone even begin to heal? This isn't just a housing issue. It's not just a cost of living issue. It's the result of decades of neglect, broken systems, and willful blindness. And unless those roots are addressed, not just trimmed, but pulled up and replaced, the crisis will keep growing no matter how many tents the city sweeps away. To be fair, Honolulu's leaders aren't standing idly by. In the face of mounting public pressure and a crisis that refuses to remain hidden, both state and city officials have stepped forward with initiatives aimed at confronting the homelessness epidemic. Governor Josh Green and Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi have publicly acknowledged the scope of the issue, and they've backed it up with increased allocations for affordable housing projects and expanded homeless support services. At the center of their efforts is the Housing First model, a strategy grounded in the belief that the best way to rebuild lives is to provide stable housing first and tackle secondary challenges like addiction, mental health, and unemployment afterward. It's a model that's worked in cities across the globe, and in theory it makes perfect sense. Without a roof over your head, how can you possibly focus on recovery, employment, or even basic health? Innovative projects like Kauhale villages, clusters of tiny homes designed to foster community while offering dignity and safety, have started to appear across Oahu. There are also plans to repurpose vacant buildings into transitional housing hubs. The goal is to create not just shelter, but stepping stones toward permanent stability. But good intentions are no match for red tape. For every unit built, there are dozens of people entering homelessness. Zoning restrictions, bureaucratic bottlenecks, and pushback from residents who want solutions but not in their own backyards continue to sabotage momentum. Even when funding is available, navigating the political and legal obstacles often delays action by months, if not years. Meanwhile, the frontline organizations tasked with helping unhoused individuals are drowning. Caseworkers are overburdened, shelters are operating at capacity, and outreach teams are burning out faster than they can be replaced. It's as if the system is constantly running on a treadmill that speeds up every week, and no one can afford to fall off. So the question lingers, are we building solutions, or are we just scrambling to contain a disaster we no longer control? Real progress demands more than press conferences and photo ops. It demands urgency, empathy, and the political will to place people over optics. even if that means upsetting a few property owners or rewriting the status quo. While there's no silver bullet, there are clear steps that could turn the tide. Increasing the stock of genuinely affordable housing is key, not just luxury condos with token low-income units, but sustainable homes for working families. Investment in mental health and substance use services must be scaled dramatically, paired with mobile response teams that can meet people where they are. Educational and vocational programs should be expanded to help individuals rebuild their lives. Equally important is public will. We must shift how we view homelessness, not as a blight to be hidden, but as a shared challenge demanding compassion, innovation, and action. If paradise is only for the wealthy, is it really paradise at all? The crisis in Honolulu forces us to redefine what it means to be a community. It's not just about scenery or weather, it's about whether people can live with dignity, whether every person has a place to call home. We can create a better future, but it will require more than hope. It requires bold leadership, community engagement, and a refusal to accept that tents on sidewalks are an acceptable norm. Final word. At Daily Homeless News, we believe stories like these matter because they remind us that homelessness isn't an abstract concept. It's real people, people with names, dreams, families.